And imagine a world, Joe, where only for 7 days there were no food in the grocery stores in this country. You'd have chaos in this country. And if in 30 days you'd have people starving to death. That's how important agriculture is. And at the Department of Agriculture, that's how serious we take it.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show, and welcome to another beautiful weekend in the greatest state, the model state of the country, the great state of Florida. And today I've got one of our strongest leaders, former Senate President and current Agriculture Commissioner, Wilton Simpson. Wilton, welcome to the Commissioner Simpson, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here.
You know, we talk a lot, and you've been on the show many times, but for our new listeners, we've expanded. We're much bigger now. We've got more broader listeners, and I want them to understand, what is the importance of your position in the state of Florida and agriculture?
Well, thank you for that, Joe. And when you think about the Department of Agriculture, we normally leave off a big segment of that. It's the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, right? We have 20 divisions, 4,000 employees that are working in those divisions, anywhere from our Florida Forest Service, which is critical. Obviously, we've already responded to over 500 fires this year. Very important to the state of Florida. Our ag law, which is our northern border protection. We work with law enforcement. We have a licensing division, state veterinarian. We're working with our partners all over the country, dealing with the screwworm that's coming up through Mexico, dealing with, things that are going on around our state within our animal population. And so the department is much bigger than just agriculture. We obviously take a lot of pride, and that's where a lot of our heart is in the agriculture, making sure agriculture has the ability to thrive, not just survive in Florida, but thrive in Florida. So that's our number one goal. But we also protect our consumers. In the last year and a half, our Consumer Services Division has removed nearly 2 million packages of illegal hemp products in stores around the state. So when you think about what we do, we're not only protecting consumers, and you see our names and our stickers on the fuel pumps that we inspect, weight scales, all of the various things. Concealed carry weapons permit is at the Department of Agriculture. So when you see the department, we always think of agriculture, which is what I love to talk about, but we also do a lot of work protecting our consumers.
Now, Commissioner Simpson, you served as Senate President. You're now the Agriculture Commissioner. Tell us a little bit, what do you like better? Which job do you like better, and why do you like it?
What you're saying there, Joe, is pick your favorite child. And, it was such an honor to serve in the Florida Senate. The first elected office I was ever elected to was the Florida Senate. Then I served as Senate President during COVID. And I think my background brought a unique perspective to serving in that time. And I'll tell you why I think that. So I've worked in asbestos removal and mold remediation all of my life since the mid-'70s. Since I've been 10 years old, I have been associated with those businesses. Well, obviously protecting us from COVID was very similar in respirator programs and protocols as it would be to protect from those things. So being able to keep the Capitol open, being able to keep people being able to come in and out of the building and to be able to do our work during that time was clearly very important. And that Florida, we took a much different approach than many other states. We stayed open during COVID. We kept our businesses open. We kept our families being able to go to their jobs and supporting, their children and so on. So we were very proud of the Florida model. We became the free state of Florida during that time era there, as when I was Senate President. So that skill set was completely different than being a Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, where we are more now focused in those areas of state law. When you're a Senate President, not only are you looking at agriculture and consumer services, but you're also looking at healthcare, education, the environment. At the department, we also look at the environment and obviously work with our farmers all over the state protecting the environment. So some of those things are overlapped, but they're two very distinct, different jobs. I really love this job and the people that I get to meet and serve this, in the state of Florida. But when I'm working with our farmers, we did at the state fair yesterday. By the way, the state fair is going on right now. we named the Agricultural Woman of the Year, Reba Mazak, someone I've known for many years, such a deserving person. Those are the kind of things that the Commissioner of Agriculture gets to be a part of and involved in, and then making regulation that is protecting our farmers and protecting our food supply. We both know here, and most everyone listening knows, agriculture is a national security issue, and we fight for it in that context.
You know, when you were Senate president, I served as a commissioner in a very rural county, a very big agriculture county, Flagler County. We had a lot of concerns about our agriculture, about our food, how we were going to work, how we were going to stay open, because people were shutting you down. Grocery stores were becoming it's funny. We kind of said COVID's dangerous anywhere but a Walmart or a major grocery store. Those were okay. Didn't really make a lot of sense. But our former agriculture commissioner was so focused on making marijuana legal and putting it out in the state of Florida. She wasn't focused on really the things of the safety of the food, keeping it moving, keeping it going. But I think, God always has a way to put us where we need to be when we need to be. You couldn't have been stronger at the Senate president at that time. We did what we did in the county because we knew we had you guys backing us. We knew that we could boldly stand out there and defend staying open, being safe, because our state level officials were pushing the same dialogue. That was important back then. As you've commissioned over to agriculture, as you've kind of shifted over to agriculture, you have focused a lot more on, you've really killed the marijuana thing that people want to put out there, the recreational, where we go and sit there. And you go to Vegas, you'll understand why. You go anywhere, California, Denver, go anywhere where it's legal, and you'll understand why it's dangerous to do that. You're walking around in public and all you're breathing is marijuana, and you're walking around with a smile on your face because you're high and you don't want to be. And your kids are. You look over, I remember looking over at my kids and I go, oh my God, I think they're getting high from breathing the smell. We don't have to experience that in Florida. You have shifted from that focus to many different, more important things. How has that worked with you when you came in and started transitioning?
What the real blessing was, as Senate president, we obviously took a much different approach to COVID and keeping our businesses open and letting our families and churches and process start. And I always say, look, during a war, you do not lose your constitutional rights. You sure as hell don't lose your constitutional rights during COVID or a pandemic. You have the right to do certain things in this country, and we're very proud of the way that Florida conducted itself. One of the things I did as Senate president, though, that I was really proud of, that really falls into place with agriculture, but not only agriculture, but the entire well-being of the state of Florida, was the wildlife corridor. When I was Senate president, I championed putting the wildlife corridor in state statute. Now, today, everybody's talking about it. They may not know the origins, but during my Senate presidency, it's something that we worked very hard with the Wildlife Corridor Foundation, Carlton Ward, Mallory Dimmitt, and several folks to bring that into state statute. By putting the wildlife corridor into state statute, we were then able to start protecting that wildlife corridor. And what is the wildlife corridor? You can Google a map of it, beautiful map, and it will give you, there's about 18 million acres there. The map I prefer to look at, Google a map of the state of Florida at nighttime. You'll see the beautiful lights around the state of Florida where our growth is, where our population lives, where your city is. You'll see the lights of your town. Everywhere it's dark on that map is the wildlife corridor. It's where the aquifer is recharged. It's where animals traverse the state, and it's where we grow your food. You cannot do without any of those things. So as a Senate president, not only did I champion putting the wildlife corridor in state statute, but then we funded properly the Rural and Family Lands Act, which I put $300 million in my last year as Senate president, so that we could buy development rights from farmers in those spaces. And about 93% of all of the rural and family lands projects that we do today fall within the wildlife corridor. So we've, in the last 2.5 years, we have saved over 200,000 acres of land from being developed with the wildlife corridor funding that we've received. The legislature has been good to us. Governor DeSantis has been a champion of this issue also. And so it's heartwarming to see the transition as Senate president to Commissioner of Agriculture And then to be able to say, we have saved over 200,000 acres of land. Not my first term, I have the rest of this year. I'm hoping to get close to 300,000 acres of land by the end of the year. And with the legislature's help, that's going to continue. And I could have, again, we could set the state on a course where we may save just 1 million acres of land over the next 8 or 10 years just in agriculture. That does not count Florida Forever and other programs around the state that's saving land. I think it's important. Clearly, it slows growth in these rural areas. We need those farming communities. We need that wildlife corridor. We need that aquifer recharge area. We need animals to be able to traverse the state. And we need to be able to grow your food in the state. Agriculture is the second leading driver of the economy still today. Today, as we sit here, 70 to 80% of all the fresh vegetables grown on the Eastern Seaboard, that's sold on the Eastern Seaboard of the United States, is grown in Florida. We're the breadbasket right now. And so every winter that happens, and we're very, very proud of agriculture. We're proud of the 2 million people that went to work today, either in agriculture or related jobs. And so we're very proud of the economic benefit agriculture brings to the state of Florida and the country and the world. But what we really are looking for here is every one of us need a farmer 3 times a day. And what you mentioned about COVID and the shutdown and how are we going to get food, and I guess it was okay to go to Publix or Walmart. When you think about that, farmers could not take a day off. I was in the egg business at the time. The day of whatever the official shutdown date was, we went to work the next day. We had to feed our chickens. We had to collect the eggs. We had to get them delivered to stores. We talk about our nurses and doctors and healthcare. We should. They were frontline heroes. We talk about our frontline responders, fire departments, law enforcement, all of those folks that had to work during COVID, irregardless of what maybe the risk was. Or at the time, in the very beginning, we didn't completely understand the full risk. But what we don't very often talk about is those farmers. Farmers did not get to take a day off. They were in the fields. We were harvesting. We were packing. We were putting it in the stores. And I always bring this back to a national security issue because even during COVID, you could go to those stores and get food to eat. And imagine a world, Joe, where only for 7 days, there were no food in the grocery stores in this country. You'd have chaos in this country. And if in 30 days, you'd have people starving to death. That's how important agriculture is. And at the Department of Agriculture, that's how serious we take it.
Well, you see it. Florida knows better than anybody. We see it in the hurricanes when food gets pulled off the shelves so fast, people start panicking. It's so important to have depth to all that. You mentioned a couple of things, 2 things I'd like to talk about. You talked about Florida, not just the agriculture, but the beautiful scenery. When people think of Florida, they think of beaches, they think of the sunshine, they think of the ocean, but Florida has so much more to it. And I didn't realize it until I started traveling and actually following you on social media and you highlighting some of these places. We've got beautiful springs. We've got beautiful caves, caverns, things to swim in. I don't even know what to call them. I just walk there, look at them with amaze by seeing them, trails, nature, the trees. We've been able to preserve this, where as you go to some other places, it's gone. It's not there anymore. Tell me a little bit about that and name some places, if people come to Florida, where they should go and see something other than the beaches, besides Disney too.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, there's Disney, right? And Universal. So when you think about Florida, Florida is viewed as a tourist state, right? We'll have over 150 million visitors visit our state this year, which, by the way, during normal economic times, tourism is the #1 driver of the economy. During non-normal times, if there's a recession or clearly a pandemic, agriculture is the #1 leading driver of the economy. We're not trying to compete with each other, but when you think about this, and it really goes to a lot of the things when I was my career that, in serving in the legislature, we're spending tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money a year putting the bike trails in. You can get on a bike trail anywhere in the state of Florida and generally travel, in some cases, many hundreds of miles. We are connecting all of those bike trails. So if you're a bike enthusiast, you can do those things. We have NASCAR in Florida, big time NASCAR. We have Formula One. We have the trails that you spoke about through our forests. We have state forests that you can go sign up for and camp in the state of Florida. You can go right to our website and find any of those campsites. The fishing in Florida is amazing. All around the coastline of Florida, interior of Florida, the fishing is amazing. So when you think of Florida, yeah, the beaches are really amazing. We have some of the best beaches in the world right here in the state of Florida. We're very proud of our beaches. But when you think of Florida, you think about the fishing, you think about hunting, you think about all the forest lands that you have access to as a citizen, right? And of course, if you're a citizen of Florida, we let you come to the front of the line in some of those things by letting you sign up before outside folks. So a lot of times our citizens could not get to some of our parks and things because they were always booked. And now we give a little grace to people who are residents of the state of Florida, which we should. They're the taxpayers here paying for these things. And so when you think about Florida, I think about the wildlife, I think about the trails, I think about the springs. And, you know, as Senate President, it was another thing I was very proud of. I put $75 million a year in the state budget that was recurring to go help clean up our spring sheds. There's been several in my area of the state. That's really an amazing testimony to those dollars. If you look at Kings Bay in Crystal River, anyone that's listening can Google that. It's a miracle. We've removed all the limbia off the bottom of that spring shed. We've replanted eelgrass there, and it is a beautiful facility. Now we're doing that all over the state, cleaning up the Indian River Lagoon, all the fishing, all the tourism that comes from that part of the state, the NASA and the Space Center in that area not only create tens of thousands of jobs, but provides, you know, tourists with activities they can go and do visits in those centers. I could go on and on. We have beautiful ports around this state. We have, you know, tourism and beaches all around the coastline of this state. But we have an amazing interior, which I hope our friends and visitors, and I know they are, we get the numbers on the data, they are getting out in nature. They're putting down these, their kids are putting down these and going out in nature. And it's so good for families and parents to get their kids out in nature. And it ties well in with our FFA program that we've done recently, getting more children involved with the FFA programs, Future Farmers of America, and our 4-H programs. And so just getting outside, being active, getting away from the screen time, if you will. And I think not only does that give you a different perspective on life, but it certainly is good for your mental health.
Now, Commissioner Simpson, there's been, you know, Florida, I always say we're the model state of the country, but the last few weeks, we have not been taking the lead of being the models. It's been cold. It's been freezing. Yeah. We've been just like every other state during the winter. But there's been a lot of dialogue about our agriculture and the danger of the cold. How does your position react to something like that we're not used to having? And what kind of damages could that have caused or have caused our crops?
Well, and I'm meeting later today again. I'm having meetings each day on the damage. We're getting that full assessment now. We'll have that full assessment, you know, in another 30 days. We'll know, you know, what the totality of the damage was. But what I know today is we've had well over $1 billion in crop losses. Remember, I said we sell 70–80% of the fresh vegetables grown on the Eastern Seaboard of the United States this time of year. Well, anywhere from 20% of a lot of the crops up to in some cases 100% were taken out by this freeze. Farmers used water protection, used other methods, helicopters and things to try to keep their crops warm, to keep them viable. But Mother Nature on the third day won that battle in a lot of cases. And so it's my job as Commissioner of Agriculture now to seek relief for farmers. And I've communicated multiple times with the White House. I've communicated with multiple congressmen and women around the state to try to make sure that we have the right resources coming to the state of Florida to help our farmers recover. And the terms that I can put it in for the most of the population, bring it very clear. When we have a hurricane, people that are affected know exactly, because they're in the middle of it, the damages and the destruction that happens in that event. This was just another hurricane event for our farming community. That's how devastating it was. It's going to take at least a year, maybe 2 or 3 years to recover for some farms. And so my job is not only to seek, you know, relief from the federal government through their programs, but to bring state resources to bear. The governor is doing an emergency order this morning to help us make sure that we have the tools to help regulate farmers to get regulation out of the way, to make sure that they can get their crops to market, get them in and out of the field, and get them into our markets. And of course, we always love to talk about fresh from Florida products. Anybody who's listening, please, when you go to your grocery store, whoever they are, look for the symbol fresh from Florida. Anytime you're supporting your Florida farmers, you're supporting that green space we all love. You're supporting that local farmer. You're supporting our way of life here. And so if you want to support fresh from Florida products, and we're very, very proud of the work that they're doing to bring more attention to our Florida farmers.
Commissioner Simpson, this position, the Agriculture Commissioner, is it similar? I know we have term limits with state level positions. We have the governor, he's about to go out. Now you are in your first term as Agriculture Commissioner. Is it term limited just like the other positions are?
It is, and all cabinet members are the same. So we all get elected in the same year. So this year, all 4 cabinet positions will be back up for a vote. Of the cabinet members that I served with from the beginning, I'm the only one that was not term limited out. So today, though, the governor has appointed a CFO and an attorney general. Both of them have already filed to run. So if they get elected in November, that'll be their first term, and we have an 8-year term limit. So I would have the ability to run one more time for the Commissioner of Agriculture, and then I would be term limited out.
Have you made that decision? I know I put you on a spot here because I'm going to tell you, a lot of people through the state felt very strongly your leadership was very similar to DeSantis. It was part of his leadership. You stood some strong battles. There was a lot of push to get you to look at other positions as well. What have you decided to do? Can I ask that now? Have you made a decision? And also, I want to say this. I was in Washington, D.C. not too long ago. The Secretary of Ag, Secretary Rollins, speaking very highly of Florida, the model state of the country with agriculture. President Trump has personally said how great of a job you're doing. Have you made a decision what you're going to do this next election?
That is a great question, Joe. And, I've not filed to run yet. But again, I think what a lot of folks do and a lot of politicians, and certainly the perception of most of the people that live in the state of Florida and around the country, believe that politicians, people who run for office, I don't count myself as a politician. I'm a public servant. I love to serve. I love for the greater good of our state and our people. I love that. I love that aspect of it. And so we have to make those decisions when the appropriate time is. And so I don't wake up any particular day thinking, oh, I've got to be reelected to something. I've got to run for an office. I've got to run for whatever position. I do love serving. It was an honor of a lifetime to serve in the Florida Senate for 10 years, of which the last 2 as Senate president. I met a lot of amazing people around this state that have a lot of concerns for our state. That fabric is what makes us the free state of Florida. When I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture, because I was asked that when I became Senate president, are you going to run? At that time, as you know, we had a Democrat in this position. And so it's a partisan seat. And I said, well, let's wait and see. Let's see if we can do a really good job at helping lead the state. Let's see if we can do a really good job as Senate president before we forecast the notion that, oh, no matter what, I'm going to run for Commissioner of Agriculture. And I felt like because of the work that we did during COVID, all of the things, and there's many dozens of accomplishments that happened during that COVID era that separated Florida from the rest of the country. Governor DeSantis has been very supportive of me in my career. President Trump has been a dear friend and somebody that's been very supportive. As you know, he's made major endorsements of me for whatever I've run for, and I value his friendship. But when I go and meet our farmers around the state, when I go look at the effects that we can have on the consumer, yes, I want to be able to continue doing those things. And, but again, it's not something that I don't have to do those things to, again, like a politician would be, oh, I've got to run. Oh, it's my turn. I've got to do these things. I take it as a serious issue that should be thought of seriously, not as gamesmanship. You have so many folks now that try to use the internet or these tools that they have available to them to make fun of and demagogue, and things are so bitterly partisan in this country today. And what I love about the state of Florida is that there's enough of us that are adults. There are enough of us that know the reality that we live in and the seriousness by which these offices are taken. And you may not agree with everything I do or the governor or any of the other cabinet members, but you have to imagine, and I believe that most of us, even most Democrats, would think that Governor DeSantis did a pretty good job as governor. And if you're conservative, you think he did a great job. I hope my time in the Senate was looked at as I really did a great job caring for the people of the state of Florida when you look at the totality of the things that we did. And so, in this job, I take the same way. I've really enjoyed the things that we've been able to accomplish for agriculture, for our consumers, and the people of the state of Florida. And by the way, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars of annual impact, and maybe even in billions, that we've been able to accomplish as your Commissioner of Agriculture. We're going to make a final decision on that here in the next month or two, right? I think qualifying is sometime in the summer, June or so. And if there is a primary election, it would be in August. And then, of course, the general would be in November. We're preparing for all of those things, but we have not made an announcement yet.
Commissioner, I really appreciate, I love the answer. I think that's probably what most people need to look in leadership when they elect their leaders, that they want to make sure that they can serve the position, that the position doesn't serve them. And that's one thing you've always done in your career as a elected official or a leader, has made sure that that position, you can work for it. It doesn't work for you. And I think the listeners and the voters of Florida realize that, and that's why you've been so effective. Whatever decision you make, I know we'll support, and we'll be excited to talk more about that. How can people, as we wrap up here and get to the top of the hour, how can people support agriculture? How can they volunteer? How can they get involved? And how do they get in touch with your office?
If you go to our website, depending on which division you want to get in touch with, you should be able to find that a phone number, email site, or something to go to on the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services website. We have agriculture all over the state. So you could go to your extension and IFAS office that we communicate with them every day all over the state. Every county has, I believe, an IFAS office, which is through the University of Florida. You can get a hold of us through our forestry department, through our offices around the state, depending on what your need is. And I will tell you that the best feedback I ever get, which really warms the heart, is that how many people tell me that interactions with the department is better than any business they've been interacting with since we've gotten our systems worked out. When we first got there, that really wasn't the case. But we have streamlined by June, our entire department will be under one set of software now instead of 20. When you communicate with us, we can in real time see that in our information packets, and we can see it and we can respond in real time depending on what the needs are. Most people coming to the department are coming because there's a challenge that they have, right? They want to know something, they need information. But we have a very robust volunteer programs. They can get involved in their FFA programs at schools, their 4-H programs. There's many ways to get involved in agriculture, and clearly there's just as many viable ways to get involved with our consumers. So, we deal with all of those issues. We look forward to having as many of our citizens engage, go out and spend a weekend in one of our forests. We've got camping facilities there. You can look that up on the website. Get out into our springs, go to our trails. We have ATV parks. We've got something for everyone here in the state of Florida, and a lot of that channels back through the Department of Agriculture.
Commissioner Simpson, thank you for your update and taking the time to give the listeners this valuable information. We know your schedule's busy. We know you got a lot going on, and we wish you all the luck and success in your career as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
And remember, listeners, agriculture is the most important product that we have in the state of Florida that we're able to bring out and produce to this country. This is something that we need to pay attention to. We need to exercise safety. We need to always have strong leaders that care about our state being the best to live, work, shop, play, and eat. Have a great weekend, and listen to this show and any others at The Joe Mullins Show on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram.